All right, here's our portion of the trip in France in August 2013, Eddie and me. First stop was actually at Omaha Beach off of the cruise ship in Normandy. Visited the memorial and the museum where they had displays of the defenses and the barbed wire, the equipment from the Jeep, and maps of the different attack zones. Uh, and some highlights of the liberation as they proceeded inland. Then we went out to the beach itself, where there are several memorials, this big granite thing, and also this interesting metallic thing as an honor and courage of the men who lost their lives on this beach landing at Normandy. It's a huge open area now. Lots of families out on this summer day. Eddie almost gets his feet wet. Then it was driving a little further inland to the memorial area, the American Cemetery in Normandy. This is a more detailed map of all of the troop movements during D-Day and following. And there's this reflecting pool out on all of the crosses that are famous view here of all the crosses out here. Discovered they weren't all actually deaths from D-Day, but they are probably veterans who served there and were later buried there, including Jewish ones with the Jewish star. But rows and rows, and they go for miles. We couldn't even get around the whole thing. So it's back of the memorial. We were looking for an Agan or an Aiken or an Egan, but there was an Aiken, A-K-I-N. I remember this picture of this ruined church of the troops landing in Normandy, and now it's reconstructed. Stopped a little roadside snack stand. Of course, everything in France has to be special and premier. This is a hamburger. I never quite had a hamburger like that before. We're on our way to Bayeux in Normandy, famous, of course, for the tapestry, which is the Bayeux Tapestry, which is basically the story of William the Conqueror going to England. They also have a magnificent cathedral. That was our car, the black one. But the cathedral was quite impressive. Didn't remember that huge Gothic cathedral. And one of the things that was fascinating there was actually a choir practicing. It was some kind of traveling American choir. And they were singing in there and resonating. It was just beautiful. So then we stopped in Giverny, famous for the Impressionism and Monet's home here, which was closed by that time, unfortunately. But the garden, you can walk around to the back, and the gates are fairly low, so actually you get a pretty nice view of the walkway out from the main backyard, and all planted the plants for color and look rather than any agricultural idea. But it was quite striking in there, including the sunflowers and all these things. And across the roadway is the famous lily pond with the bridge, the wooden bridge across that shows up in a lot of his paintings of the water lilies. We could see some water lilies out there in the distance, just from the gate, and a weeping willow over the top. Just got the essence of Impressionism here just by visiting there. And unfortunately, there were too many bugs for Eddie, so he's not too happy. And we had to take off. That was my one close-up shot to a water lily in the restaurant there. But there were museums and all this sort of thing. It was 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. There's even a Japanese exhibit here. That's just the parking lot, as you can see. It's just a beautiful garden area. Fascinating haystacks as we drive over on into Paris here. Looks like a bit of a Monet painting. In time for the Versailles evening show. bought tickets in advance, night lit gardens, waterfall, some of the water fountains going. Primarily, though, the attraction was a large fireworks show. This is actually just fire down the central causeway, and then fireworks over the huge gardens there, and just really beautiful, beautiful evening. Our hotel that I picked out was within walking distance of Versailles, so we just strolled back to our nice modern room where they had a nice little petit déjeuner breakfast. Uh, that is actually the city hall of Versailles, just half a block from the main palace itself, which we started out the next morning. Of course, the statue of Louis the 14th in front and the golden gates to enter. It was pretty mobbed today. I had bought tickets for the fountain shows in the garden again. This is Les Jardins musical gardens. And so we kind of skipped by the palace and went out and saw the gardens in the daylight now. And there's little tucked away food stands and rest areas among the gardens, and lots of little individual sections to it that connect with gates. And finally the fountains did come on with music playing everywhere. We could see it over there in the distance. Everybody rushes over. This is the main one of the main fountains, right with a view out from the castle, and we even got a rainbow coming in with the sun behind us. Was quite spectacular. And other fountains moving around the sides, and this is a huge fountain with like Poseidon or something, and the more rainbows on these side fountains as well if you get the right angle. So this time we're enjoying. That's a fish sprouting off, and connections between the two into the main side. So there's just like water everywhere when they're going. So last time Alice and I went, they weren't going at all, and I was determined to see a little more of the fountains this time. They even had one that was sort of like a dancing fountain show that twirl around and all that. No fountains in this particular nook, but it was a beautiful, like Grecian sort of thing. And here you can see Eddie kind of got around with the panorama. You can actually move a little bit. They have a little train transit at such a huge place. So we decided to visit the Trianons. This is the Petit Trianon, Marie Antoinette's little playground that was built for her expressly. It's this little small version of Versailles. Nice paintings, hardwood floors, elegant French decorations, of course, and even a harp in good condition, plus the kitchen. So it's definitely complete, the copperware, everything out of stone, even the hallways here, and a billiard room. You need that in your palace too. One of the more attractive parts was the central stairway and the entrance, all with the gold leaf on it. So that was one of the best places for pictures. And imagine walking around and down the grand staircase. There was a small garden on the outsides, but more bugs, so we didn't go in too far. And little folly out there. Now, a little ways away was the Grand Trianon with the flowers of the king, fleurs de roi. It had a small little formal garden there, but this is significantly bigger and more ornate than the Petit Trianon. Even has a mirror hall like the main palace, and the formal bedrooms with those crazy round bolster pillows I never understood. But furniture and paintings, chandeliers. So that is then the little formal garden that in the center of it. It's in kind of two wings, so you cross between the wings, and we've come to, again, the billiard room. This would be the yellow room, I guess. And this is the malachite room, that green stone there, very rare and valuable. And this impressive collection here. I think a lot of it comes from Russia. Here's a quick view in the flowers of the king, the royal portraits with flowers in them. And another beautiful hallway there with along the paintings, etc. Here's the concourse connecting the two wings again as we go on out. You could pick up a quick snack here, but we're going to go on and eat later. We took the tram back to the front. That's the view from the train. Well, one more view up front, quite a ride, and hopped on the train into Paris itself, Versailles, before we get there. And then guess what? Eiffel Tower means we're in Paris now. And that is a bridge. And we walked over to the Legion of Honor, which is across the way. It has the collection of all the different medals and decorations for the French military and politicians, of course, Charles de Gaulle. And if you like medals and things, it's quite impressive. And just across the street, really, is the Musée d'Orsay. Once a train station, it's now the place for all Impressionist art collection in Paris. It was a free day on a Sunday, so quite busy, quite crowded, but it only took about half an hour to get in. There's the Bartholdi Statue of Liberty model, and here's a Renoir sculpture. But they have a really nice room of Van Gogh. This is another version of Starry Night, self-portrait, quite familiar paintings you'll notice here. Eddie loves this one of the chapel there that was featured in a Doctor Who episode. More Van Gogh, the flowers. This museum has a beautiful view over the Seine, including these giant clocks that were there with the train station and all, and you can still view out. Now I went into the Monet section. These are some of those water lily type paintings and haystacks. It's actually Bastille Day, one of his more colorful, famous paintings. On to Renoir and Degas, the ballerinas dancing. So this is an overall view of all paintings. They're just all familiar ones hung up on the wall as you go along. So I recognize some of them. There's a walking bridge across the Seine, and they have this tradition of putting locks there with romantic sayings in it and so forth. And we're now in the Tuileries Gardens and on to the Champs-Élysées. You could drive fancy cars here. It was some kind of thing. You paid a little bit to drive a fancy car around the streets of Paris. Water fountain there. Now we're going to walk down the Champs-Élysées, which is actually more or less a garden for most of it. Then we found a wonderful Italian restaurant, not too expensive considering the Champs-Élysées. And, you know, it's got all these American stores on the Champs-Élysées, the Gap, and guess what? The Disney store. So, of course, had to explore that out a little bit. Eiffel Tower and Disney. And even downstairs and upstairs. This was a guy, I don't know how he could maintain that position, but he was actually there. Yeah, look at these dinosaurs, golden dinosaurs. It's a Louis Vuitton luggage shop, so anything to attract attention and have them look at your bags. In this shiny gold outlet, so got a little bit much for Eddie, I suppose. Then as the sun sets on the Arc de Triomphe and the Champs-Élysées. We head back, run into a fun little British family, these young kids. They were so excited about being in Paris. Next morning, we're going back into Paris and stop a little ways out because there's a large model of the Statue of Liberty there in the middle of the Seine with the actually with the Eiffel Tower directly behind it from the right angle, and a balloon over there you could go up on as well. But you can hike around just to the very base of this statue. So it is a lovely spot, and just right off at the train station actually, and get a nice reflecting view of the Eiffel Tower. So now I'm going to go over closer to the Eiffel Tower. We've been up in it. That's carousel at the base and some of the souvenir shops as you're ready to go across. And there's Eddie underneath. So we're on the Champ de Mars, the ground outside, and everyone's taking their picture there with the Eiffel Tower. What an interesting sky today. Interesting clouds and everything. Different poses you can try. Now it's lunchtime. Went to a little bistro, and Eddie had the pasta, I had salad, and nice French service. Going to Les Invalides, that building on the right, which is location of Napoleon's tomb and a huge military museum. France has a long military history, of course, but the inside that domed building in particular is Napoleon's tomb, this giant bathtub, as some people call it. There's Eddie looking down, really elaborate colors and decorations, including the dome itself. And behind it is this huge square building, a little statue of Napoleon, which contains artifacts from hundreds of years of French military history, the swords and uniforms, and detail Napoleon's emperor coat that he wore when he was crowned emperor, all the way up to World War I and World War II. It's a gas bag type of thing. This is some of their Africa Corps uniforms. So that took quite a while to get through that huge set of museums. We tried to see this cinema museum, but it was closed. Nobody told us that. So we went back, stopped at the L'Orangerie Museum, where famous for the Monet's water lilies, which are done in this kind of circular display, really unusual. And upstairs are more Renoir paintings, more impressionist stuff along the walls. Quite beautiful stuff. Get into a few Van Goghs as well. So time for another snack at the Place de la Concorde. Now we're walking to Moulin Rouge, and this is kind of the old Hollywood section. It's all sex shops all the way along the way, an erotic museum and love shop. And it's this just became, everyone knows the Moulin Rouge and, you know, the scandalous can they do there. They still have a show. It's pretty expensive. We didn't really want to stay around for all of that, but it was interesting to see the theater and the lobby and all the stuff going on in there. So, but the whole area is got a bit seedy. And a little quick subway ride over to Montmartre, famous Sacre-Cœur white cathedral up at the top of this huge hill where you have to climb hundreds of steps. It's not too many people actually see the inside of the cathedral, so there you go. But most of the time is spent outdoors looking at the view and all of Paris at your feet there. And people just hang out on the steps and check out all the different sights they might be able to see. So then you have going down the long steps on the side. It's quite a hike, but we're going down to the metro because we Finally found it. It took a little time, help from some guides, and we arrive at the Place de Bastille, where the old prison was for Bastille Day. Around the corner is Bofinger. It's considered the most beautiful bistro in Paris, and it specializes in Alsatian cuisine. It has this beautiful interior with the hanging plants, and I got a local beer, and then they came out with Alsatian charcrute garni, sauerkraut with sausage and ham. The bathrooms lead to the same wash area. That's typical in France. So our finale after dinner was the Arc de Triomphe at sunset. After hiking up this like 15 stories of spiral steps, it really was a real challenge. Arrive at the viewing platform. In the far distance, you can see Invalides over there, and the Champs-Élysées. But mostly, you come here to see the Eiffel Tower. The one thing you can't see from the Eiffel Tower at night. It has a giant spotlight off the top of it that spins around. So it's a fascinating sight in the evening. See, we have a lot of company up there, and then it's down those stairs again. Whew! Quite a challenge. But they floodlight the thing at night with all the famous battles of Napoleon. Eddie decided to stand on the floodlight, so he got well lit up. And the eternal flame for the unknown soldier there is at the Arc de Triomphe. Well, we've seen a lot of these signs all over too. Disneyland, Paris, and finally we get there. Eddie's so happy. We stop and check in the Newport Bay Hotel at Disneyland Paris. Beautiful room. Some of their gifts, you start getting a little bit of the French flavor. The entrance to the studios part goes through like a Hollywood land, and it's an interior. There's the brown derby, Zoetrope, but of course they have the wizard hat and Peter Pan up there too. They have different characters there. You don't see a lot of these characters here. They even have a Radiator Springs. It's a little bit like our Cars Land, but it's more of your standard little kiddie ride type cars and Lightning McQueen. There's a Crush coaster. It's a kids coaster there, and here they come whipping out of the inside. They've got Goofy and Casa della Tires there. So it's a little bit like Cars Land without the real Western feel to it. Of course, Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear. Got to be part of their Toy Story land. They even have the dog. This is a little like roller coaster with the stretchy dog, and there's the car on a roller coaster type thing, and the Green Army Men parachute ride. So you could see the Tower of Terror in the background. Now here's a parade came along. Mary Poppins and Bert. And Snow White. Got her eyes closed, unfortunately. Mulan. Characters. See if people recognize the same characters. Okay, Lilo and Stitch. Get a little bit of the Hawaiian feel. Okay. Sheriff Woody and Jessie. But Edie's favorite thing here is MAGIX. It's a combination live action and theater presentation about this guy bopping in and out of old movies. And we saw it twice. Here's Stitch live. It's a little bit like the Turtle live that we have here. There's 102 Dalmatians, the big car for Cruella de Vil. And of course, there's a whole restaurant for Ratatouille. Lights, motors, and action. We've seen that a couple times. Don't need that. Here is the Remy Live Buffet. From the Fox to the Mouse, Michael J. Fox. So they actually had some people do cement there as well. And now we're moving on to Disneyland itself, the Disneyland Park, celebrating its 20 years. They have a covered arcade as well with the weather in France, you know. We're coming to another parade here with, looks like Tangled. And, of course, Cinderella. And Little Mermaid. Oh, yes. And now to New Orleans and the Princess and the Frog. Oh, Alice in Wonderland. Little different floats. Toy Story. Oh, and Winnie the Pooh, of course. So, Lion King. Very good. Peter Pan. So, nice complete float like we often have here. And Mary Poppins as well. She was just over in the other parade. This is the next day. And Mickey and Minnie on the grand finale. Oh, and Duffy too. Oh boy. And Goofy. So our lunch is in this interesting restaurant. Oh, excuse me, that was dinner on that first day. We still stopped at Phantom Manor. That's their haunted house. Their Big Thunder Railroad with the train going through into the haunted mansion. A little different feel. They try to make it a Western style look to it because, you know, old Gothic mansions are pretty common over there. They've got their own riverboat. So this is just about sunset time, so it was some nice for some pink clouds. Sunset look. Last Chance Cafe in Frontierland, where they were playing Dixieland Jazz. The Lucky Nugget. Bigger than our Golden Horseshoe. Then they even have the fort with the antlers and everything, and we went up and took a look at that. The huge, beautiful castle there, which is the highlight of the evening show Disney Dreams, the most high-tech show they've ever done with projections and designs on the castle and fireworks and lighting and projections, all kinds of things here. It's a story of Peter Pan losing his shadows, and here comes, oh my gosh, the forest and the 20 years anniversary. So they even have a little, the Coca-Cola thing, there was a baseball collection area. And along the main hallway, you get these beautiful stained glass ceilings, and look at that, Los Angeles, California. So we were closing down the place and time to move on. The central bandstand near the entrance. Good place for Eddie to take a quick photo. And the entrance is through that hotel. Next morning, it rained, and we had early magic hours. So we actually pretty much had the place almost to ourselves. It was kind of wild. We had a whole hour early, going along these causeways with only a few people in sight. There's even the early morning milk delivery. You can see this unusual sight to have the thing virtually to ourselves. Nice time to ride Pinocchio. And the Alice in Wonderland area is just much more extensive than here, with the teacups as usual, as expected. But they have a little seating area where you can have your Mad Hatter tea party. Eddie tries out both chairs, so I decided to try one too. Rain was stopping a little bit by now, but that's a windmill, the old windmill there from another old Disney cartoon. And the Carousel of Lancelot was fascinating in Fantasyland. All the horses here are armored, so they're like medieval chargers here. This is part of Big Nelly. All the outside horses are armored. Then they have an actual Cinderella's, of course, a local there, so they have a whole fountain and eating area dedicated to Cinderella. And Sleeping Beauty, more mosaics and murals. This is the interior of the castle, which has a great view over Fantasyland. There's the dragon lair. Under this castle, there's actually a dragon. And he moves and he breathes smoke and so forth. Now they've added new gates here at the back of the castle. Their Tomorrowland is called Discoveryland. It's done a steampunk type of thing based on Jules Verne. Over on the other side in Adventureland is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril, which is a roller coaster a little too fast for us. But they do also have a train, Frontierland Depot, and even have to change the steam on the train as well. So the sun is coming out a little bit here back as we get to the center. Cars are going up and down the main street. Here's some dedications to the guys largely responsible for designing this Disneyland Paris. They have a pirate ship there based on the Captain Hook pirate ship that they used to have at Disneyland, not quite the same, and a Skull Rock waterfall coming out. You can go on board the ship, as the kids like to do. And not only that, you can even go inside the Skull Rock. It's a series of caves like the old Tom Sawyer Island. Look out the eyes, and there's some waterfalls in there and interesting core. Stop at Pirates of the Caribbean. Eddie and I did a plummet in the front row. They even had a little secondary parade for the 20th anniversary that went around the castle, the center area, with the rainbow train here and Goofy on hand. Sculptures inside the Snow White. Eddie gets a crepe. He was looking forward to this. He had a crepe last time he was there, so he had to have another one. Well, we ate at the Blue Bayou. It's like the Blue Bayou restaurant. That is dessert. To say that, fried ice cream. And enjoy our last night here and the final show. Really spectacular show. You can see Eddie's video of it. This is from down along Main Street, but Eddie, on YouTube, Eddie has a full video of this spectacular show with the star in the heavens. So into the shopping mall with the Mickey in a balloon. And next morning, our last day, we're going to have breakfast, a little tour around the Newport Bay Club. All of the Disneyland Paris hotels include a huge continental breakfast, so it's nice. You don't have to pay for extra breakfast. And certainly the young kids are ready for a busy day. It fronts onto this lake, several different hotels around this lagoon, and the balloon as well, of course. But that's our room, just above the balcony one there, quite small. Back to the car, off to Charles de Gaulle Airport, and home.